my name is Sean Anderson. I've been doing this a long time, a little bit longer than Tom, 1 year longer, 17 years, which makes me about 140 in startup years, I think. I feel really old around here. So I started, my first startup would be MSNBC, which was a fairly successful startup. Daniel spoke earlier about it takes 4 or 5. This is actually my 4th startup, so hopefully he was right about 4. So I worked in an office building, and I commuted to the suburbs, made a lot of money. I was doing some consulting, but ultimately it was just not a very fulfilling life. We had these neighbors. We were best friends with neighbors that we saw only a couple times a year. Really, we had a party every New Year's Eve, and we just didn't connect, even though we were constantly seeing these people. Excuse me. Let me start over. So we were best friends with these people who lived 2 blocks away, but we saw them once every couple of months. Eventually, that unsatisfying life led to divorce, and walked away from all this other stuff, the country club, the nice house in the suburbs, and went sailing. Finally, bought a yacht, was in Mexico for about 2 years, and then I found community. I found this group of people who I connected with, and the tap in, I think you can understand a little bit about how emotional you can get when you actually finally get to connect with people in your community on a very intimate and personal level. Marty had said earlier, basically no matter what people are doing with technology, it all comes back to people want to touch somebody. The question is how do you translate that to your real world communities? When I was on a yacht in a bay in Mexico, every single morning at 8 o'clock, we would get on the VHF radio, and everybody would check in and say, I'm sailing vessel chemistry from Seattle. And everybody says, they introduce themselves one by one, and then they say what they need. What do you need? Well, you're in Mexico, so things aren't readily available. I need a ride up to Phoenix so I can fly out and see my kids. I need to get a cart that nobody has down here in Mexico. Is there anybody going up to the States who can drive this back down to me? Basically, it's just people helping people on a very hyper-local level. I got up here to DC a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I realized after 1 year, I was in my apartment complex, and I didn't know a single person's name in my entire apartment complex. And that was a little bit depressing for me, because I realized that that's kind of the suburb life that I left, where there was not a lot of connection happening. What I wanted to do is create something where people can not necessarily, where you can connect with people who you see every day. If you have something that you need to sell, you want to buy something, essentially it's build your own hyper-local Craigslist, or create your own Craigslist for your own apartment complex. I'll explain this very well. I'm the tech guy, I'm not the pitcher. So the idea is, if you buy something from your neighbor, you go upstairs and you buy a sofa from your neighbor or from somebody in your apartment complex, you're going to see that person again. If somebody drives across town to buy something like via Craigslist, you're never going to run into that person again. If somebody has an extra set of tickets to the Capitals game, you can go down a couple floors in your office building and buy those tickets from them. And then you're going to see them on the elevator again. These are people you're going to run into more often. You're going to be able to connect, and you're actually going to know their name because you've had this transaction, as opposed to the Craigslist model where you never see each other again. The idea mainly for, there's elementary schools, you swap kids' uniforms, books, other things like this. Right now, we're 2 weeks away from relaunching. This is a rebranding.
Wow.
Thank you very much.